Hey Chivis, I'm Aiwe, and today we're talking about why Rome conquered Dacia and later abandoned it. If you enjoy stories like this, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's go! Act 1. The province Rome chose to leave behind. Rome did not abandon Dacia because the conquest had failed. It abandoned Dacia after the conquest had succeeded so completely that the territory became too exposed, too demanding, and too expensive to defend during an empire-wide crisis. That reversal is a real story. In this documentary, we will follow Dacia from a dangerous kingdom on the Danube to a showcase of Roman power to a frontier Rome could no longer hold. In the late 3rd century, Emperor Aurelian withdrew Roman troops and much of the imperial administration from the province. Rome gave up towns, roads, forts, mines, and cultivated land north of the Danube, while reorganizing territories south of the river and the new provinces associated with the name Dacia. Why surrender a province famous for mineral wealth? A conquest can be profitable at the moment of victory and still become a liability over generations. Dacia offered Rome a one-time financial windfall, strategic depth, and prestige. It also created a forward position surrounded by difficult terrain and exposed to pressure from several directions. Act 2. The neighbor Rome could not ignore. Long before Trajan, the political landscape north of the Danube was changing. In the 1st century before the Common Era, a ruler named Burebista assembled a powerful Dacian-led formation across parts of the Carpathian region, the lower Danube, and the western Black Sea. Ancient writers describe a vast realm, but its exact boundaries and degree of central control are uncertain. For more than a century, fragmentation reduced the immediate danger to Rome without ending contact. Then, in the later 1st century of the Common Era, Dacian power consolidated again under rulers including Decebalus. By this point, Rome had advanced toward the lower Danube. The creation of Moesia south of the river transformed the region from a distant borderland into a militarized imperial frontier. In 85, Dacian forces attacked Roman territory and killed the provincial governor, according to ancient accounts. Rome reorganized Moesia and sent armies north. A Roman expedition suffered a serious defeat in 86 or 87, and the commander Cornelius Fuscus was killed. Rome recovered under Tetius Furianus in 88. The fighting ended with a negotiated settlement under Domitian, probably in 89. Ancient sources describe payments, craftsmen, and military specialists supplied to Decebalus. That arrangement was unstable from the beginning. A client kingdom could be cheaper than direct occupation, and it could serve as a buffer. But a powerful ruler receiving Roman money and expertise could also use those resources to become harder to control. From Rome's perspective, Decebalus was not merely a troublesome neighbor, he was proof that indirect rule had limits. Act 3. What the treasure can and cannot prove. Dacia possessed resources that made direct rule tempting. The Carpathian region offered gold, silver, iron, copper, salt, timber, and agricultural land. Archaeology confirms mining and metal production, especially in the western mountains. But the famous claim that Rome conquered Dacia simply for gold reduces a complicated decision to a single motive. Ancient accounts describe enormous treasure captured after the fall of Decebalus. One tradition places gold and silver beneath the bed of the river Stray. Later writers report extraordinary quantities, while modern estimates have been far lower, though still immense. None should be treated as an audited inventory. What can be stated with confidence is that the conquest brought Rome a major influx of wealth. Trajan sponsored games and monumental construction, including his forum, basilica, libraries, and column. The columns' spiral reliefs are invariable evidence for the campaigns, but they were designed to celebrate imperial victory, not to provide a neutral military report. A one-time windfall is not the same thing as lasting profit. Once Rome took the province, it had to pay soldiers, administrators, road crews, mine guards, and supply networks. The mines produced value, but their net contribution after protection and transport remains difficult to calculate. Dacia's wealth was real, its ultimate fiscal balance is not. Act 4. Two wars, one irreversible decision. Trajan inherited the Danubian problem after becoming emperor in 98. He also inherited the political incentives. As a provincial-born ruler adopted by Nerva, he needed military legitimacy with the army, the Senate, and the wider population. A decisive victory could restore Roman prestige after Domitian's awkward settlement. Yet prestige alone does not explain the invasion, and neither does finance. Security, legitimacy, and resources reinforced one another. The First War began in 101. Roman forces crossed the Danube using bridges and carefully organized military infrastructure. The campaign was not a single effortless triumph. Armies fought through difficult terrain, attacked fortified positions, and maintained long supply lines. In 102, Decebalus accepted severe terms, including restrictions on his military capacity and fortifications. But the settlement did not create security. Decebalus rebuilt defenses and military power. Roman sources naturally present this as treachery, while from the Dacian perspective, disarmament beside a victorious empire may have looked like a threat to survival. Whether he deliberately violated the treaty or acted in self-defense, the result was the same. Rome no longer trusted the buffer it had tried to manage. Trajan invaded again in 105. This time, the objective was not another temporary settlement. Rome aimed to destroy the political center that made organized resistance possible. The campaign culminated in the capture and destruction of Sarmizegetusa Regia in 106. Decebalus escaped, but killed himself rather than be taken prisoner. Roman control followed across much of the Dacian heartland. The new province was not identical to every territory once influenced by Decebalus. Rome established a separate urban center, Urpia Traiana Sarmizegetusa, distinct from the conquered capital. Forums, baths, temples, workshops, roads, forts, and mining settlements turned the conquered landscape into an organized Roman possession. The population was transformed, but not simply erased. War casualties, enslavement, displacement, and migration probably reduced some communities, while settlers, soldiers, miners, merchants, and administrators arrived from across the empire. Roman Dacia was not an empty land repopulated from scratch, but neither was it unchanged. It was a new society built through conflict, movement, and negotiation. Act 5. The Forward Frontier. Dacia's greatest strategic advantage was also its deepest problem. By moving north of the Danube, Rome gained access to mountain passes, mining districts, and routes through the Carpathian Basin. It also pushed potential enemies further from Moesia. But instead of defending a river frontier, Rome now had to protect a large projection of territory beyond the river. Pressure came from different directions. Sarmatian groups such as the Ayaziges and Roxolani interacted with Rome through warfare, diplomacy, trade, and migration. Communities sometimes described as free Dacians remained outside the province. The wider Danube region was also affected by conflicts involving Germanic peoples, including the Marcomannic Wars. Rome continued investing in Dacia under later emperors. These developments show that Rome did not immediately judge the province a mistake. The crisis came when the empire had to defend too many frontiers at once. During the 3rd century, invasions and internal instability weakened Roman military capacity. A province that had been manageable when the army was strong became much more dangerous when reinforcements were scarce. Dacia was not necessarily an economic failure. Its value simply depended on a level of military control Rome could no longer guarantee. Act 6. What Rome's retreat really meant. By approximately 271 to 275, Aurelian withdrew major forces and much of the civilian administration from Dacia. The decision was part of a wider imperial response, not a single local defeat. Rome was reducing an exposed perimeter so it could concentrate resources closer to the Danube and other threatened regions. So was Dacia a triumph or a trap? It was both, but not in equal ways at the same time. The conquest succeeded militarily. It removed an independent power from the northern frontier, delivered wealth and prestige, and created a productive province with towns, mines, farms, and soldiers. For generations, Rome judged the investment worthwhile enough to defend. The trap emerged from the geography of success. Rome exchanged a dangerous kingdom for a permanent responsibility. The new province could not be defended by prestige or mineral wealth alone. It required troops, roads, fortifications, administration, and constant attention to peoples beyond its borders. When imperial resources contracted, the same forward position that once offered strategic depth became a liability. That is why the simplest explanation is misleading. Rome did not invade only for gold, and it did not withdraw because the gold disappeared. Trajan's decision combined frontier security, political legitimacy, imperial prestige, and access to resources. The conquest delivered gains on all four fronts. Its long-term cost became decisive only when the empire could no longer sustain the military system that made those gains possible. Dacia's history reveals a broader rule of empire. Conquest can solve the problem of an unstable neighbor by turning that neighbor's territory into your own, but ownership brings obligations that victory alone cannot end. Rome's retreat was not proof that Dacia had never mattered. It was proof that even a valuable province could become expendable when the cost of holding it exceeded the empire's available strengths. If you found this explanation useful, consider subscribing for more carefully sourced history and explore the next chapter of Rome's changing frontiers.